The other angle we wanted to explore is that we've heard from the corporate, and we wanted to get an SME kind of viewpoint and an SME angle on kind of the process. So Fergal, you're very welcome. By Media, you're most welcome to join us. And Fergal is in conversation with Magella, our colleague from Dublin BIC. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Maybe just for context first, tell us a little bit about By Media. What do you do?
What we discovered and what By Media evolved from was the problems that these SMEs faced when they were basically trying to do their advertising. So advertising in general is probably one of the great drivers of growth within businesses. So advertising drives revenue, drives profits, drives market share. But unfortunately, from an SME perspective, they're very, very bad at doing it. So there's almost like a formula of planning, purchasing, management, and measurement that an SME or a large business will generally go through when they're advertising. Unfortunately, SMEs don't do that very, very well. So we basically created a platform, and a lot of people have spoken about digitalization and automation and data, and basically we brought all those processes to the SME advertisers. So we have a platform which allows SME advertisers to plan, purchase, manage, and measure their advertising much more effectively, which then leads into business growth much more efficiently.
Okay, excellent. So you've talked there about SMEs, SMEs being your target. Was that one of the reasons why when the call out came for Innovation Exchange, was that something that kind of resonated with you? Okay, we sell to SMEs. We haven't really tried the corporates yet, or was that an element of the attraction?
Absolutely, yeah. Our target audience was we looked at the advertising market, and we've done a huge amount of research into the advertising market, and there was a very big a gap in terms of the different types of advertisers who were in the market. So you had the big brands at the top level, the likes of the Cokes, Nike, Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble spent $7 billion annually on advertising.
Wow.
Then below the waterline, you have a huge cohort, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of small, medium enterprise advertisers, and that was always our aim was to help those guys because the big brands had all the help that they already needed. So our aim was to help the small guys. So to do that, then we had targeted that sort of audience. But then as we were going through our own commercialization of the product and the journey and taking on customers, we sort of started to realize actually there's a huge cohort of maybe not small, medium enterprise guys, maybe not quite the big, huge brands, but these type of corporates that still suffer the same problems as the SMEs around planning, purchasing, management, and measurement when advertising, but we couldn't access them.
Okay.
We didn't know how to get in with them. And so we started even things like, the government procurement, e-tenders and things like that. And it's just an absolute nightmare. It's particularly now I won't talk about anybody else's space, but in the advertising space, they basically have a single framework in place for advertising in Ireland. So one company has access to every governmental organisation when it comes to advertising. And so it's a closed shop. You can't get in with government organisations.
So you can't even get in at the beginning of the pipeline.
There's no way to even put in a tender. So a lot of the requests for tender documentation would have some of the criteria we've seen is you have to have 5 million in cash in the bank to apply for the tender in the first place. You have to have customers in at least 20 plus countries. So for a small, medium enterprise startup like we all are here today, it's virtually impossible to get into those sort of governmental tenders. So when the opportunity came to maybe talk to the bigger type businesses and find out their procurement processes, find out who the right people to talk to within the organizations, that was like a godsend to us. It was like, okay, we can now climb the ladder a little bit in terms of our customer profiles. And also, I suppose, the fact that Dublin BIC were involved. We've gone through the investor readiness program with Dublin BIC.
Journey.
We've been, Michael mentioned Future Scope earlier on. We were in the final forum Future Scope in 2018. So we've gone through the whole Dublin BIC kind of engagement. And so when an innovative idea or a new program comes out from Dublin BIC, it's always something that catches our attention anyway. So the people involved, the chance to deal with maybe bigger companies, I think the growth mindset piece as well, as a startup and a scale up, you're generally kind of in that growth mindset. But a lot of the bigger businesses that we might have been trying to target might not necessarily have been. So the opportunity to meet businesses on the larger scale who obviously had that growth mindset as well, because they were thinking, okay, how can we engage with more innovative companies? And for us to have the ability to talk to them was brilliant.
Brilliant. So can I just bring you back just a little bit to, you've been talking about the difficulty you had in getting into kind of government and public sector did you try to get into private sector corporate at all, or was it just too scary, or too what was it that kind of?
It was probably more of a psychological thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're not. There's no difference, and I think the great thing about the innovation exchange was it made all of us realize these are just people as well.
Just people.
They're just people in procurement departments who have a job to do.
Yeah.
They're trying to find innovative, interesting
and the best solution
to deal
for
with
them.
that have the best solution for them, exactly. And so it kind of demystified the whole thing. And because I suppose you're burned as well by the governmental tenders thing,
Absolutely.
you kind of think, look, we just leave that alone. That's not for us.
Yeah.
Whereas this program gave you the opportunity to actually meet real people that were involved in the procurement process, find out what their challenges were, find out what their processes were, and find out some ways of maybe working together. Because
it's about matching your sales process to their buying process, isn't it really? And unless you can understand that buying process, it is a mystery. It's
100%. And I think the fact, like, maybe we're blessed as well just with the larger businesses that are on this program, but they're all very they're all very into kind of like finding solutions from small, medium enterprises. Whereas you will get into larger organizations that just have this, look, they're like massive cruise liners and they're just plowing through the water and they can't move. You know, so if an interesting or an innovative idea comes to them, even though it might be brilliant and might solve solutions, it might solve problems within the organization, they just can't move.
They can't turn that big ship. Yeah.
So it's great to have the ones on board that you got.
Okay, brilliant. That's great. So notwithstanding that, you know, we're only over phase one of the program, and there's still quite a bit to go, but have your expectations been met, or what progress have you made? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I think it probably comes back to the psychology bit. And as you say, we're in the middle of it. So our expectations would be in terms of, you know, getting in front of some of the larger companies that would be a good fit for the solution that we have. And we can see within some of the organizations we've already spoken to, the same problem exists. The SME problem that we've identified, large business problem, it's the same thing. It's just at a bigger scale. So it's been great to be able to talk about that, but I suppose, so the expectations in that, in terms of the learnings and the insights and being able to access those people, have definitely been met. I'm looking forward to the next piece of it, where we actually get in front of some of the businesses and we can actually engage with them and start to pitch to them and maybe collaborate, as Mark said, on projects together. But for us, it's about the learning and the insights initially. And that was the main thing. It's trying to find out, are these organizations at a grander scale any different than the small or medium enterprise businesses that we were already dealing with? And thankfully that has been demystified, and we found out that they're not. They have exactly the same problems.
Yeah.
And just for us, it's better because it's at a bigger scale. Yeah. So if you get into, if you sign one of those contracts, it's like 50 of the other ones that we've been dealing with. And I suppose in terms of the mindset, Magella, you'd mentioned kind of like, has it changed kind of the way you've approached things? Like I have a meeting in the afternoon now with a UK advertiser who's flying into Dublin to meet us. And we're hoping that we're going to sign a 3 million contract with that customer. Now,
so has it given you huge confidence then? Absolutely. Is that what it has given you in the last few months?
Absolutely. And again, it's back to that kind of demystification of the process within the larger organizations, and the understanding that they're looking for solutions as well. And so therefore you kind of go, when we would have looked at these larger businesses and we went, okay, these guys are spending like 5 to 10 million a year in advertising. We could never like get in with them, or like we could probably never like support them, or whatever it might be. But suddenly when you're on this and you're hearing the guys from Ryanair and Paddy Power talking about exactly the same challenges and problems that they have within their advertising processes and functions, you kind of say, you know, why wouldn't we? Like our solution is brilliant. Like, you know, why wouldn't it solve a problem for a larger business as much as? And in fact, a lot of the guys would have said from the large organizations, they would have said like the problem that they have is that when the small, medium enterprise come into them, the change of the problem is too small. So you need to be pitching big. You need to say, look, when we come in, we can change. Well,
back to that transformative words, you know, that you can actually transform either their bottom line in some way.
Exactly. And it gives you that confidence then to go in. When we were talking to that UK company that we're now about to sign,
great.
It gave you the confidence then to pitch like that. Yeah. You know, we are as good as the other guys we're up against.
Yeah. Cool. So just thinking about the program so far, can you pinpoint, you know, what elements of it specifically have been really good, really effective, really productive? Has it been, having to write your pitch, or has it been, the engagements? And I know, the program probably hasn't been as we would have designed it if it wasn't for COVID. Yeah. And so we're missing out on this kind of interaction. Yeah. But, what can you pinpoint the elements that have really worked really, really well?
Yep. I'll give you two highlights first of all before I go into the effectiveness bits, and one of I'll give you a personal highlight and then a business highlight.
Brilliant.
So one of the personal highlights, and I hope Roy doesn't mind me mentioning her business, but when Impeel was talking to Ryanair, and she spoke, they've got a fantastic health app product, and she said to the Ryanair guys, how does Ryanair feel about wellness within the organisation? And there was literally, like, I could see the two guys and the smiles started to come across their faces, and I think one of the guys started to giggle. But he gave a really good answer. He said, look, Ryanair is a very dynamic company, and if you want back rubs and foot massages, you maybe want to work somewhere else. But I thought that was my personal highlight. I thought it was really, really funny. And the business highlight for me would have been when we were talking to Paddy Power. And Paddy Power's real challenge was around advertising. So it fitted right in with our solution. And when they spoke about spending 100 million annually in the UK on advertising and having the problems around planning and purchasing and managing the campaigns that our solution solves for them, and the ability to potentially get in front of those guys in the next few months and talk to them about how we might be able to solve some of those problems.
It's exciting.
Now, we wouldn't say we're going to get a 100 million contract, but who knows where it could go if we got a small piece of that, start off with a project. So from a business perspective, that would have been my highlight. It would have been like my hairs on the back of the neck standing up when they're talking about, we spend 100 million sterling on advertising. It's really, really problematic for us. So that was the business highlight. And then in terms of effectiveness, you mentioned Zoom. And it's a double-edged sword. So it's fantastic that everybody from diverse geographical locations and, from their own offices, we can meet Ryanair, we can meet Microsoft, we can meet the HSE, we can meet Paddy Power in our own offices, from their own offices, which is fantastic. So all that logistical piece of how do we get everyone together was really, really good. And I think for me, again, I know there was the training elements, and there was the pitching elements and writing the spiels and the prospectus and all that for the companies. But for me, it was actually the interaction with the businesses by Zoom. Like, again, it would have been better face to face, but by Zoom was great to be able to, have the burning questions that we had about their business and how they operate answered by the people who were in charge of doing that was fantastic.
Okay, excellent. So I don't know whether any of the other SMEs here or virtually want to pitch in on, some of the perspectives that Fergal is bringing up. You can think about that for the next minute. I have another question for you, Fergal, and it's always a risky one to ask, but, this is a pilot. We might not have got it fully right. So, from, again, the perspective of the SME, what maybe could we tweak for the next time? What might be more productive or more effective for the next running of it?
Yeah, well, I think first of all to say congratulations to everybody that was involved in it, from Dublin Big to Skillnets, to all the large companies that came in, to all the SMEs that got involved in it and kind of got on board without a real roadmap. There was kind of a general idea of this is how it might work over the next few months, and everybody just weighed in and got on board. So from our organisation, we would have liked to see, and again, probably for the next one, is kind of what is the schedule? Like, how are things going to fall into place? Because there is a bit of like, well, when are we doing the pitching? And like, do we get in front of businesses and how does that work? And what's the final outcomes? And, all of that piece. So I think more of a roadmap to how the whole thing is going to work. And I know it's a pilot, so
but that's fair enough. So you can kind of set your own expectations in terms of timeline and in terms of, when you want things to happen for your business, that if it's going at a particular pace, that you can align with that.
And then the other thing that I would love, and I think Liz touched on this earlier on about the different verticals and maybe putting it into kind of different pots of businesses or whatever. I think sometimes there seemed to be almost like an overwhelming feeling that the larger businesses were like, oh geez, we've got like fintech businesses, wellness businesses, marketing, advertising businesses here.
All pitching to us
at the same time. I think probably from their perspective, it probably would have been better to have like, okay, we're going to have now 10 businesses that
Yeah.
are in the kind of marketing consumer data space. Who within the organization is the person to have on the call for that?
Yeah, because it's not necessarily
Yeah,
the
exactly.
same person.
Now we're doing
Yeah.
fintech.
Yeah.
Who are the people
Yeah.
to have on the call that deal with that? So I think, again, for us, it would have been some of the people that were there on the calls. There was no point in even us trying to have a conversation with them because they
wouldn't
know.
understand. They wouldn't understand the.
But again,
yeah.
if they could create, I suppose the next step for us then with that is if they can create the channels into the right
They can open
departments
the doors.
and
Yeah.
open the doors,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And at least they know who
Perfect.
the businesses are now that they're dealing with.
Okay, well that's great. It's great to get that feedback. Any comments? No, from anybody? No. Okay, one last question, Fergal. So when this is say over, and I don't think it's ever really going to be over because the doors are going to be open and it'll continue. But when you look back on the Innovation Exchange, what will be the difference between you saying that was really worthwhile doing, that was a success for Buy Media, or not?
Yeah. Look, it's already been a success for us in terms of the learnings and the insights and getting those the paths to procurement within those larger businesses and that learning piece. So again, any learning that you bring from something and anything that you get that progresses how you think about things and how you think about business and how you think about generating revenue in the business is always good. Mark said it earlier on. He said he'd love to write a PO for one of the businesses. We'd love
to get
one of the businesses to get one to write a PO for us.
Excellent.
So again, if there was some actual business that came out of it, I think that's the ultimate. But again, another thing that I would say, and it's probably been retarded a bit by COVID, is the collaboration between the group as well. You know, I think it would be great for us to kind of find out more about the businesses that are involved. Is there potential opportunities for either partnerships or else doing business with each other as well?
Absolutely.
So I think that bit has been a little bit, and again, it's caused by Zoom meetings and we're on for an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't really engage. But that would be the other thing. Again, a successful part for us would be we find a really interesting partner that we can go in and pitch to larger businesses.
Excellent. And Liz talked about that earlier, that was kind of an unexpected or an unplanned outcome, that SMEs would actually find each other and find ways of collaborating.